You understand the food safety, and you can relax and enjoy the process.
Good. And is it a very intricate process?
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You're going to get a little sweaty, dewy, a little shiny, because you're going to have the big kettles going, and it's good to have all hands on deck, because if you want to do big batches. But also, don't be daunted. If you don't want to do the giant 24 quarts of something, you can do small batches of everything, and you can even keep them in the fridge or in the freezer, and it works just fine. But the key element, preserving, is not about preservatives, but it is about the natural elements that keep food products tasty and food safe. And that is essentially sugar, vinegar, and salt.
That's what you need.
Any combination of the two ensures the shelf life when properly packed of any of your goods. And it's important to know when making a jam, particularly, quite often we want to back out some of the sugar, because you look at the measurement on a recipe, 7 cups of sugar, well, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You need the sugar as the preservative, along with the juice, and the two work in tandem. There's the sugar with the lemon juice work to make the pectin work.
Okay.
A lot of people have trouble making jam that sets, but you need that balance of the sugar and the acidity to make the pectin work. And pectin now comes, there's pectin, which is the traditional pectin, but liquid pectin comes in a pouch, is the most common for the jams. And pectin is derived from fruit, mostly apples, in the skins, in the seeds. It's naturally present in fruit, and that's what gels or sets your jams and preserves.
I would never contest the 7 cups of sugar. I don't know why anyone would have a problem with that, but I understand what you're saying. Don't try and go with 3 if you need to have 7.
And if you wish to cut back on the sugar, what you do is you can use a freezer jam or a no-cook jam setting agent, and then you simply put it in the freezer as opposed to going through the jarring process.
Got it.
But the other step when you're making jams is to find and extract the pectin from the fruit. The pectin is in the seeds and in the skins, and it sets without actually adding.
So are we going to talk about how much you need to make, you know, like a certain amount in the end? There
are lots of recipes out there, and that brings up a good point, Tracy, because I recommend using tried, tested, and true. There's some great websites out there. Bernardin, who makes the jars and the lids, they have a website, homecanning.ca. It's got all the safety tips. It's got great basic ratios. It really makes you comfortable. They've even got a 1-800 number. You're in the middle of making your apricot jam. What do? You call up
and they'll help you
on the other line, Bernardin, and she'll guide you through.
That's awesome.
Now, what is important to know is the sanitation, because if you're making jams that you want to put on the shelf, you want to store them in a cool, dark place so in the basement, you know, traditionally a larder, that's where you would store it. But you want to clean the jars. If you're buying the jars new, you can wash them in the dishwasher or wash them in soapy water. The same with the lids, but then you have to sterilize them. Dishwashing and packing your jam in the dishwasher is not enough, because you can't guarantee that those jars have been boiled for 10 minutes, and that's essentially what it is. So you get your canner out or your giant stock pot that allows all the jars to sit flat in there, and you make sure those jars are in there for 10 minutes. And at higher altitudes you actually boil longer, because water boils at a lower temperature at high altitude. And then you use these fancy tools. So you don't stick your hands in there, no towels in there. And you extract the jars and you let them just dry off for a second, and then you can tip them up and fill them with your jam.
Oh, you want them hot, hot, hot still?
You want the jars hot. And you want the jam hot. This is called hot packing. And then you simply put the funnel in, and this guides it in, because as much as possible you want to keep no jam from dripping on the outside or on the lip or the thread of the jar, and this really makes it easy. And you just move from jar to jar. Make sure your jam is always simmering or hot.
And you want to make sure it's airtight?
Yes, and that brings up another good point. You don't boil your lids. You can recycle your jars, but this little rubber ring is actually what's going to create the seal for you. So you don't want to boil it, because you can break it down until you put it on. So what you do is you soak them in, what I do is boil tea water. I turn it off the heat, let it cool for 10 minutes, pour it over the lids, and now it softens the seal. So when you put it on the jar, and then you put on the ring, and you just tighten it. It's called finger tight. And you're going to want to have a tea towel at this point, because it's hot. Finger tight, meaning you're not really tightening it hard, because that too can break the seal, just to set it. You don't have to turn the jar upside down. You let it sit and cool. And what's important is called the headspace, and leaving about a 1/4 inch of air between the top, the lid, and the top of the jam, and that's what's going to create the vacuum. So as the jar cools and the inside cools, it creates the vacuum inside, and that makes your seal.
Fantastic. Now, how long does it preserve for? How long can you keep it around for?
I like to use up my jams within a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple. My good friend Paris, I would like to say I make a lot of strawberry jam, but I have a really good friend Paris who brings me her jam every year.
Aww.
And it's a big thing where I live is exchanging preserves. All of these, except for my peach pepper relish, I made this, but all these are gifts from other people.
That's so nice.
And it's a nice thoughtful gift, and it's sharing the gift of time, and from the garden it's an economical gift too.
Absolutely.
And what you want to look for after you've let these sit, and is this sort of indentation in. That means you've got that vacuum in there. And what I love, I don't know have you done preserving?
Never.
After you've finished up, and you always set things on a clean tea towel so you know it's safe, no bits and pieces here and there, you hear the popping as the jams cool, as the lids sink in, and that's just, it's the happy sound of summer.
It's a happy sound of preserves.
And don't worry, if your jam doesn't set right away, it can take up to a full day for your jam to set, for the pectins to kick in. And if you're not happy with your set, because some people like a firm jam, some like a more fluid, you can always open the jars, empty it back, and you cook it down. It just means that the sugar content wasn't quite high enough that if you reduce it, it concentrates the sugar, and it will set again.
So you can fix it.
You can always fix it.
That's great.
Or you call it dessert sauce.
There you go. Give us the website again with all the recipes and the measurements.
Homecanning.ca.
Homecanning.ca.
It's the classic Canadian recipes, things like chili sauce, bread and butter pickles. It's a different treatment doing savory. We would need another segment to talk about.
We need a whole day for that. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, the last thing to remember is after your jars have cooled, take this lid off, and if you do have any residue on the outside, just wipe it down. And then, again, just finger tight on there, label it when you made it, what it is, put it away. And when it's time to open it, what you want to listen for is that happy popping sound. And then you know it's safely preserved.
Lots of happy popping. Very good. All right, we've got more kitchen basics coming up after the break. Stay with us.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Volkswagen's Volksfest. With great deals on all models, German engineering has never been so festive.
Carl, don't you have friends coming over?
Yeah, so?
Oh, have you smelled this chair? Or these curtains? You've got to wash this whole room.
Are you kidding? Wash it?
Whatever you can't wash, we can now freshen with Febreze.